Guys, what's up? Brian here from Sports Advantage with Lucas and CJ, and just another episode of Edge Information. We want to talk about today why young athletes should train in a performance setting. Okay, there's a couple different variables that we look at, the way the trends in sports have been going, and so it's one of those things where we feel very strong that young athletes in a safe environment should be actively training and working on their bodies, working on injury prevention, and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Lucas here. He's going to talk about the age-appropriate scenarios for young athletes. Okay, go ahead, Lucas.
So the big question nowadays is, how old should my athlete be before we start training? Are they old enough to be in a gym setting? Are they old enough to handle weights? And realistically, the answer is, as long as they're competent and they're able to understand direction, there's really no age that they shouldn't be learning to do the movements correctly. Even if it's with a PVC pipe or bodyweight movements, it's never too soon to start instilling those different movement patterns. But for here and just for safety purposes, we like to see them around the middle school age before we start putting weight on their back and teaching them how to do the weighted movements correctly. But again, if they learn those movements at a younger age, they're going to benefit a lot more when they come here and see us.
Lucas, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to talk about chronological age versus biological age. So here in the gym, like if let's say your child comes in and they're 12, we're not just going to let them lift because our certain age requirement is 12. If they're not physically ready for the demands that we put them under, it doesn't make sense to push them through something that their body is not ready for them yet. So like if your kid goes through starts to mature when they're 10 versus 13, and there's a difference, and we have to adjust to the athlete so prevent the risk of injury.
CJ?
I'm going to talk about sports specialization with youth athletes. Now, one thing that we always do here is everyone gets a good fundamental base training with everything, but also what we can add is sport-specific training. Now, when you get into that, that also helps your athlete where they get that advantage on the field because now they're learning how to do the correct movements and specialized lifts and exercises designed for that specific sport. Like you're not going to have a baseball player doing lifts that you're going to have more for a football player, or you're not going to have a swimmer doing more exercises that you got designed for, say, a soccer player. It's not going to work because you need to be having that specialized training, and that's where your muscles are going to start to develop in the right way, and that's where you're going to find that advantage where you come day one, you actually got a good understanding and your body is moved in that certain way, and you actually have that muscle memory built in.
Okay, good. And the last one, obviously, the earlier kids start training, the better chance they have to get a Division I scholarship. Sorry, we had to throw a little humor in there. You know, so many parents that come in and talk to any of us when they sit down, when the kids are 10, when they're 12, you know, the first thing they always comment on is, hey, I want to get my kid to the next level. You know, and in a parent's mind, the next level is a Division I scholarship when they're 10 or 12. Parents need to just kind of pump the brakes a little bit. The kids need to pump the brakes a little bit and understand that getting to those final destination points is what they really are. Takes a lot of time in between, okay? And so why young athletes should, if they have aspirations of playing at a high level, should start training earlier is not to do that, but to ensure safety in their bodies, because again, they're getting pulled in so many different directions. You know, nowadays kids are throwing all year round, which makes absolutely no sense to any of us because Major League Baseball players don't throw year round. They take time off, okay? You know, I always use the example of football. You know, everybody thinks that all sports should be played year round. Well, we don't play football year round. Why? Because of the collisions. Well, what people fail to realize is that your 12 or 10-year-old volleyball girl that jumps up and lands on a cement floor or a gym floor 200, 300, 400 times a night, 3 to 4 times a week, guess what? In football, when two people run together, they move, they absorb each other. When your daughter or son lands on the ground, every single time that ground does not move. There's no absorption in there. It's bang. That's why we're seeing so many stress fractures in young kids. That's why we're seeing so many low back issues in 10, 12-year-old kids. It's not from strength training. It's not all from strength training, Okay, you go to a doctor and they'll say, well, you know, they shouldn't be doing this, they shouldn't be doing this. I don't think that that's necessarily true, and we don't believe that either. Strength training in nature and performance training in nature is preventative first and foremost. Okay, the longer we can keep your son and daughter in the practice arena will give them a better chance to get more reps in games. Okay, so again, the reason, you know, from our standpoint, if they have long-term goals, why they should train earlier is to offset all the specialization that they're doing, okay, in their sports. So we give them exercises, like CJ said, that will help benefit them from an injury prevention standpoint, all right? Like Lucas says, we're going to put them in scenarios that they're ready for, not just because they're 13. You know, if we have a group of 8 13-year-olds come into our gym, they may have 6 different exercises between the 8 of them, because one's ready to goblet squat, one's ready to sumo-style deadlift, one may be ready to front squat, one may have to do a heels elevated body weight squat, okay? And so, you know, following up that, going into what Lucas said, teaching proper mechanics, you know, even with a PVC pipe, even with body weight, is so beneficial for young kids because it's going to help offset all the other stimulus in an overuse setting that they're getting, okay? So again, young kids, ages 10, 11, 12, it's safe for them to train as long as it's in an environment where there is a process and a progression, which is what we feel we do very well here at Sports Advantage. We evaluate the kids when they come in. We look at their age, yes, because obviously there's a maturity factor, but we also look at their background and how they move. Okay, if they can't move well on the turf, if they can't move side to side, if they can't absorb force, they can't absorb load. Okay, so we have to make sure that we're progressing them where they're at based on their age and their skill level as far as from a movement standpoint. Okay, so find a place that you can trust. I feel that we do it as well as anyone in the Wisconsin area as far as training for young kids. We've had a lot of success. We have a lot of kids that continually train with us, which means that they feel like they're getting the things that they need from an injury prevention standpoint and a development standpoint. Okay, check us out on Instagram at sportsadvantage.com. Check our Facebook page out, Twitter, all that stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.
May the 4th be with you.